Hello, welcome to the October 30th, 2024 Environmental Management Commission meeting. We have Zoom participants from our commission and a couple of us sitting here in Kona. But I believe we are expecting Erica to join us shortly. So, there she is. One of the things we're struggling with is our director of environmental management is tied up in a meeting, and so may do a little bit of putzing and maybe some early breaks, just so we can have him in the room, or at least online, so that we can enjoy his wisdom and he can hear us. But I will call the meeting to order because we appear to have quorum, and I thank you all for showing up. It's very important. I'll start introducing, and people wave when I call your name out. As I see it on the Zoom, from District 8 is Dot Norris. And then there's me, Georgine Adams. I'm District 9 and chair of the commission. We also have Gonzalo. I'm just blanking on names today. Garcia, I'm sorry. Going crazy. Lee McIntosh from District 6. Jim Beats from District 1. Laura Ocasio, District 2. Sinclair Ferguson, he doesn't count, he's just council. Del Otsuka from District 3, and Erica Perez from District 4. Unfortunately, we have vacancy at District 5, so again, encourage if any of you know somebody who's in that area to apply for a position on the commission. Also, Lee McIntosh and I are terming out this year. So I'm trying to find somebody who'd like to take over District 9, and I hope you are too for District 6. But I think it's very important to be able to represent the entire island, because each of our areas have some slightly different concerns. So again, welcome. Let's start the meeting officially. The first item on the agenda, or actually the second, is the approval of the minutes of September 25th. Could I get a motion to adopt the minutes?
So moved.
A second? Dot, thank you. Were there any corrections or comments on the minutes? Nothing, thank you. And we have a vote to approve. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, raise your hand. All
Aye.
all opposed, say no. Hearing no no's, the minutes are approved. Statement from the chair. Again, thank you all for being here. A lot of things have been cooking. And as I said, our director is tied up in a meeting dealing with another one of our many hot issues of what we're going to do with cesspools. So we'll be talking about that as we go. But I wanted to just encourage everybody to contribute and to make sure that we're indeed helping DEM and council in the environmental arena. Fourth on the agenda is public statements. Is there anyone who would like to provide testimony on items on the agenda, either now or when we get to them? See a hand raised. Stephen Holmes. Which item would you like to speak to?
The one on the Kona. It's, 4.
Which?
Kona.
Oh, the Kono decision down in
Yeah.
the the reports and correspondence, item 7. Do you want to speak to that now?
Yes.
Okay. Anyone else who would like to provide public testimony?
I would. This is Alan Fukamizu. When the agenda item comes up regarding wastewater.
The wastewater in general?
Yes, regarding staff, regarding the staffing, if that's going to be brought up.
Okay, the staffing issue is kind of the standalone number 5, but we will get to you at that time.
Okay, thank you.
And remind me when I forget, which I probably
no problem. I'll try. Sometimes I have a hard time with this phone trying to find the buttons. So
okay, thank you. Anybody else on the Zoom who would like to make a presentation? You know, Del Asuka submitted testimony, but as a commissioner, she certainly can speak to issues as we go along. But I don't believe we've received any other written comments. Is that correct, Peter?
That's correct, Chair.
Well, that woke everybody up. Okay. Then we will proceed with Stephen Holmes.
Aloha and good morning, commissioners. My name is Steve Holmes. I served on the Honolulu City Council for 12 years and worked as an executive assistant to Mayor Jeremy Harris for a couple more. I spent a lot of time in executive session myself, talking to city attorneys. We had both our Office of Council Services attorneys, plus we had Corporation Council attorneys, and often got very different advice. Honolulu, like the County of Hawaii, faced a very large wastewater lawsuit, and we were under a federal consent decree and had to do a whole lot of work in a very short period of time, and we needed flexibility. So I really would urge the commission and the department to go for the maximum amount of flexibility. If you simply get a legal opinion from your attorneys, rather than having them act as a pathway to solutions that revolve around specific issues, if you just give an open-ended assignment to attorneys, you're going to end up with a Frankenstein monster, in keeping with the holiday. The Kono decision applied to the city and county of Honolulu, just like it does the county. It was done by the Hawaii Supreme Court. And there's 2 takeaways. One is it dealt with privatization. So the West Hawaii landfill was privatized as we got away from the old landfill here in Kona and built a new one. There were new federal standards called RCRA standards, Resource Conservation Recovery Act, and that required a whole lot of new detailed conditions that had to be met. And so the county made a decision to go with a private waste management. But the Supreme Court did not strike down the waste management contract. That exists today. So if you're thinking that Kono somehow has this broad-based approach and prevents you from doing things like public-private partnerships, leveraging access to private capital, I would tell you that that's not true. That in fact, that contract was not struck down. The other takeaway is that you need to work with your union employees and follow state law and include them in decision-making on critical things. That always makes good sense. And the same was true with the Salerno decision, which went against the city and county of Honolulu. Council members, not me, made it clear that they were going to cut all funding for solid waste pickup of using city trucks, and they lost. But there was no union negotiation. So I would just urge you to think in terms of context for what the Kono decision does and what it doesn't do, and not handcuff yourself as you're facing a federal consent decree. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And I'll ask one more time, anybody else want to give testimony? If not, we'll close. If you do find the need to want to provide testimony later as we have discussions, please send a notice through the chat if you can, or if you just have a phone and you can't really communicate, otherwise say so, and I will try to make time to allow you to participate. But I do need to make sure I give priority to commissioner comments. So not to ignore you, but we'll give you the opportunity to speak later, including Alan. So we'll close the public comments for now and move on to unfinished business. I would like permission, if I can, to move up one of the discussion items, number 2, and do that before number 1. Number 2 was addressing a request that had come in from Laura Casio. So I'm going to kind of look to you, Laura, to guide questions and discussion on this item. But you've had an interest in understanding just what's going on with inflow and infiltration for the Hilo wastewater treatment sewer system, and what the water division has been doing to address that. And I believe I saw Chris Barber is on the line. If you could join us and speak to that, assuming the rest of you are okay with swapping the order. I'm trying to push things that we really need to have Ramsey here to talk with us to be later, so hopefully he can join us. So Chris, are you prepared to talk about this topic that we've postponed far too many times?
Yeah, so the current approach to our I&I is just so that everybody knows, we do have the capability in-house to do point repairs with CIPP on smaller smaller pipes, like say 12 inches or less in diameter. So the we're able to do 8-foot sections at a time. So that's one approach that we have to I&I efforts. And then we also have a grouting capability. And what that is joints that don't hold pressure, or that we have found through our CCTV assessment to potentially be areas where we could get I&I. We can also use our grouting capabilities. So currently, per the AOC, our AOC requirement is that we do CCTV assessment of 20 miles per year. Okay, so then the idea is that the entire collection system is assessed per NASCO standards within the first 5 years, and then after that point, based on the NASCO condition assessment, there's routine reinspection, but also there's prioritization and repair of the NASCO assessments where we found that we have various failed sections of pipe and different things. So at current, we know that we have infiltration inflow by our Onakaka sewer pump station on our Kalana Anaole. And so what we've done is we've packaged up a request for basically manhole to manhole type CI. It's manhole to manhole CIPP. That way, it's much more efficient, less impact to traffic. And so we packaged that request up, and we've sent that request in to our finance division. And so right now they're working on identifying funding for that project. So that's one current project that we're looking on. We know from our basic desktop analysis of the Hilo treatment plant that we have I&I. So all of our Hilo side collection system has not yet been fully assessed. But in terms of identifying areas of I&I and working towards repairing that, our current approach is to essentially package up this first project, submit it this year, and then as we find areas that need point repairs, our staff can do that in-house. But it's a lot of times, especially on Klanonoli, the pipe is larger than what we're tooled to repair. In situations where a manhole to manhole repair is actually better or more efficient, we're not equipped for that. So that's why we would outsource that. In the future, say next year, there are plans to do a price term agreement for this kind of work, so that it's less, it's just kind of routine, and we would essentially follow in the footsteps of the city of county of Honolulu, who have annual agreements and actually allocated budget for these types of repairs each year. So that's our current focus and our current pathway to address the I&I. Right now I'm working with essentially we're scoping out a separate consultant contract to come in and help the county as a whole create an overall collection system assessment and prioritization effort. And so at current, that's what we are doing to assess the I&I issues.
Laura, do you have follow-up questions?
Hi, thank you. Thank you so much for that information. That's a lot of what I was kind of asking for. However, I'm curious, you mentioned there's a separate contract that you're going to be looking into. So I'm a little bit more at this point looking at what have we, what have the CCTV, sorry, I'm learning all of the acronyms, right? The CCTV, how much of our shoreline, you mentioned the AOC requires 20 miles per year. Have we not started it yet, or was that started under the AOC? How much of our piping have we assessed prior? I guess another question that did come up was about the CIPP. Is that, just curious too, is that polymer? What is the materials used for that?
So to answer the question about materials, the CIPP, there's a couple different there's a couple different things that we use. So one of the things that we use for the point repair CIPP that we can do ourselves on the smaller size pipes, we're talking 6-inch, 8-inch, 10-inch type pipes. That would be a resin impregnated liner. It essentially, it's if you just imagine it's a cloth tube, and what we do is we mix various resins. We lay this cloth on a couple of tables, and then we impregnate it with the resin, and then it gets put on a packer, and then we pull the packer to the area that we know needs to be fixed, and then this inflatable balloon packer expands and then it sits for 2 hours and cures. So that's one method. So that would be resin and, kind of a carbon fiber type, or a mesh, a fiberglass mesh, like almost like the surfboard type material. So the next type of material that we use is a grout, and that's just it's a synthetic kind of like almost a kind of a rubber type consistent material. And so that gets used. And then there's also other, there's like a link sleeve that can be used. We don't necessarily like to use that because it's actually a metal, it's a stainless steel, and we're really trying to get away from that, because over time those will corrode and fail. But now the other question was what is the status of our current assessment? I think at this point in time, prior to the AOC, there wasn't enough. I think approximately prior to EPA's technical assistance of the county, this is back in like 2019, 2020. I think the data showed that we had about, I would say about 5% of the collection system actually CCTV. Now, the paradigm of our assessment was different at that time, right? It wasn't that the paradigm at the time was, let's look within the pipe, and if there's a problem, we identify the problem and we see it, right? And it was all very, we were hand filling out work orders at that time. There wasn't really a great control on the CCTV video. So, we may have had, 50% done. We don't, the records, were not essentially reproducible. So then EPA came in with a grant, and they helped us in this case. They helped us get the next gen software, and they brought in a technical assistance consultant to kind of help us get more organized. And so now we have the asset management, and we have ways to get, they also helped us get a couple of more CCTV vehicles. So now we have a way to take the video, do our condition assessment in the field on the truck, and then we have a way to push that data into our next gen database. So then, so now we have that capability. Now, so that's, hopefully that addresses that question. Now,
let me interrupt you really quickly. So you say we have the capability, but I guess I'm trying to get at like how much have we actually
yeah, exactly
done, and then where are we at in terms of repairs?
So in terms of repairs, we're essentially getting started. As far as the repairs identified, we have made various spot repairs in areas where we've had spills, and areas that have needed to have be immediately addressed. But in terms of what we've identified as NASCO level 10s or 8s, we're still in the process of prioritizing that, getting budget identified, and getting those items repaired. Now, how much linear, how many miles of pipe have been assessed? So this year we're at about 7 miles assessed. That's on our system. And then prior to the start of the AOC, we were about 20 or so miles assessed. And so right now we're just working on, becoming more efficient and consistent with our assessments. And then the reason that I'm going to bring in a consultant to kind of help us is we need help in terms of prioritizing the assessment, And then we need support in, once the assessment's done, prioritizing the repairs and packaging up those projects. And so that's where we're at.
Okay, so for example, the Onekahakaha one that you mentioned, that we know there's big concerns there, and that's near the pump station. Is there a timeline? Have we started any kind of repair on that, for example?
So what we've done is that's going to be included in our most recent request for emergency procurement. And so the idea for that is that we've identified all these areas that have existing problems that are contributing to significant I&I at the Hilo treatment plant. Now, we need to keep in mind that all sewage, no matter where it is in Hilo, is pumped to the treatment plant. So I&I is a challenge for the county, because the county is paying to pump seawater or whatever is leaking in, right? Rainwater through manholes, or broken laterals, whatever the cause of that infiltration is, the county has to pump it. And so when we look at that, and it's an environmental hazard. And so we requested, so we put together all the necessary documents, and then as far as timeline, I know finance is working very diligently on finding us the necessary funding to get that work done.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Part of the reason, just so that the commissioners and the public is clear too, part of my questioning on this is really also not just about intrusion, but we know that if there's intrusion, there's extrusion, right? So we're talking about shoreline exposure in the shoreline in the ocean nearby, especially for Keaukaha. That's our most used coastline as far as recreation, as well as for food and fishing. But then also just the conversation that is continued around cesspool, septic, and tapping into our sewage treatment plant in the big picture. And we have all of our waste coming from Hilo through Keaukaha, and if the intrusion, it just seems also like that the intrusion and extrusion would be a focal point, and wondering what DEM is doing to actively fix and address the situation. But not just along Keaukaha, really we see it along the shoreline here, more on the Hilo Bay side by Kaipalawa, the lighthouse, and areas of downtown as well. So have you folks done any of the CCTV and assessment in the downtown area as well?
So in the downtown area, I don't believe that assessment has been complete. I believe our focus has been out in the Keaukaha area, and out in those areas, and that's why all of that, and some of that is some of our largest collectors as well. I mean, you have 18 and 30-inch pipe in there. Right. And so that's why, and with the staff that we have, we could adequately do traffic control for the trucks and the various things that need to do the inspection.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Chair, I'll send it back to you so you can refer to other commissioners.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to clarify, did you need the chemistry involved with this resin that's used to plug the pipes?
Are you talking, you're asking me, Chair?
I'm asking you.
Yeah, I mean, it's concerning, because I mean, my next question really is, what is if there's impact on nearshore waters, when we're talking about highly toxic substances. At the same time, I recognize that there's the issue of sewage leakage, so there needs to be a preventative solution. However, I do think we should always take into consideration these toxic chemicals leaking into the groundwater as well as nearby ocean water.
And I guess my question to you, Chris, is are there a set of approved resins by EPA to be used in sewer line repair?
As far as CIPP repairs go, I'm not sure that EPA has a certain list of approved you know resins. I do know that there are, I do follow an ASTM standard for sizing and the strength of the resin once cured. But when we put it in place, we are using, you know, we cover, the ground where we prepare the packer, and all of that is covered with, plastic. We do have, BMPs in place. We're not necessarily, we're not, these things are kept in, you know, thick plastic containers, and we do have the MSDS and necessary provisions if there is a spill during preparation. Then once you're in the pipe, um, and you are going to cure, I mean, I don't necessarily see that this could escape, um, and leach into waters. Usually it sets up pretty. It's a very thick viscous material, and it's not like a gasoline or oil that would seem to want to run away from your site. And then once it's hard, it's inert at that point. That's how we actually have to dispose of it. We have to harden it, and then it just becomes standard refuse, standard waste. So, but I mean, we can take a look and see if there's something that could potentially be, more environmentally friendly. And then in terms of, manhole to manhole repairs, those companies come in, and it's actually really interesting. They have equipment that, impregnates the resin and does everything, and then they can harden it, within minutes with, hot steam or a UV light trolley that drives through the pipe. So it's pretty clean process. As far as the manhole to manhole in situ, repairs.
Okay.
So
I just wanted to clarify
Sure.
if there were any additional questions. Personally, I don't have a big concern about contaminating the wastewater treatment plant basically with toxic materials. I think that they aren't going to be leaving and traveling very far. They're going to set up. So I don't think that they're going to be a source of it, but it's a question to ask and to be comfortable that we're using the least hazardous materials that are possible, that still meets the performance requirements of not having to be repaired again in another year or two. So as you say, it's a
Yeah.
trade-off in terms of how do we make sure we're fixing these things. One of the other questions I had is it sounds like we were very reactive in the past, and maybe still. Is there a budget that covered discovery of leaks? Why is it that you're asking for finance to go find money that there wasn't
So as far as
fund already
budget,
set up for them?
yeah, so as far as budget, I have maybe 200, maybe 250,000 generally allocated for collection system repairs. So the request that we made to finance for the most recent CIPP repair is 5.9 million. And so, it's it again, it all funnels down to our collection system does need, a significant capital investment as well as our actual vertical, facilities. And so, in looking at a budget for repair, I mean, in my, AOC capital plan, I've requested 5 million per year for, in situ CIPP repairs. And so, but that's in conjunction with, all of the other various budget items requested by other departments and requested, as part of the AOC as a whole. Because just Hilo itself, the bid opened at 337 million. And, we're also looking at the Pahala collection system, which is another 30 million. And so we're at $367 million just this fiscal year. And that's only 1.5 projects, right? Because in Pahala, you still have the wastewater treatment plant. Then you're looking at Naalehu, as well as you're looking at the other AOC stipulated projects. So that,
I appreciate that,
yeah.
that there's a lot of money. In fact, I was the one, as we get further down in the agenda, that asked that the preliminary priority ranking for capital projects was included in the package for people, because I was very impressed with the laying out of the factors that go into setting priorities, and the money we're talking about is humongous. So you need to set priorities based on risk, and that you've got now a rational system instead of the old reactive fix it, it's squirting up in the air, we got to do something approach that we've had in the county for probably hundreds of years. Jim Beats has a question.
Yes, this is a message to Chris. This is Jim Beats, District 1. Chris, thank you for the information. That was really informative. The question I've got is about the consulting work on the collection system assessment. Has that contract been drafted or is already in completion? That's question 1. Question 2, how many miles of the sewage system will that consulting firm complete?
So to clarify, we're in what we would call a scoping process for that contract. So currently, what that would entail is, basically somebody putting together an inspection, an assessment process and manual. So, other utilities, they mention, their, other utilities in their collection system is maintained by groups, say, called the Corp Yard, right? The Corp Yard guys. And what other utilities will have is they'll have a book, a red book or a green book or some sort of sewer service area map or something. And it basically has, okay, the first week of March, you go here, you inspect this, or it'll have consistent, month by month goals to be done. It'll also have a defined process for which, if something is identified, as a NASCO level 10 or an 8 or 5 or 4, whatever it is, we prioritize it in, a certain way. So, so the total miles for the whole system, we're looking at about 120. So then when that gets done, you essentially have an implementation plan for your collection group, and that's how they prioritize and do their work, right? There's always other stuff that distracts them, right? There's one calls, there's emergencies, there's in the plant work where they get called out to help operations. So, but in a general sense of, how do you maintain the collection system, there's kind of a guide. and a process. And so that's really what the consultant would do, is it would help us create, a written procedure and manual and process and kind of help us put together maps and different things for this effort. And then that way, if something happens to me or, some other person who's been, helping, run the show, then that document hopefully lives on and moves to the next person. And so, that's where that goes. And so we're right now. So I think, there's other groups that have these. So we're just, spending some time to develop that scope and then move forward.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah.
Thank you. Dot, you had a question, comment.
Yes, I was wondering, does the MSDS sheet for the resin have any kind of information on leaching after it's been cured? And I also want to comment that toxic materials can shut down a wastewater treatment plant if there's a sufficient amount that causes the biological parts of the plant to die. Essentially, the parts of the plant are based on a biological digestion system, and that can, if there's toxins going in, that could cause some real problems.
So off the top of my head, I do not know of any formalized leaching studies or within the MSDS sheet. I do know that CIPP is predominantly in the last 20 years, 25 years has become increasingly more popular for utilities to use in their collection system repairs. And so, I'm thinking that, and within our pretreatment program, that program is really designed to keep toxic materials out of our facilities. So, but as far as, does that actually, could it cause impacts? I'm at this point in time, I'm not sure. I would think though that other jurisdictions, if they were having issues, then we would hear more about it. Other
I'd like to
jurisdictions.
propose that we, or you can say that to me, give me the set of MSDSs that you've got, and
Okay.
we'll package them out and get an information packet out to the commission. Is that okay?
Sure.
That's okay with me. I was also wanted to comment that whenever you have inflow, you also have the possibility of groundwater contamination from outflow. So are we checking the groundwater, especially for homes that are dependent on groundwater for their water supply? Are we checking for bacterial contamination?
As far as wastewater division, we're not really doing specific groundwater testing. We have discharge requirements that we meet. I do know that the drinking water Department of Water Supply, they definitely, check the groundwater for, bacteria issues. But as far as wastewater division, no, we don't necessarily have any well monitoring occurring.
Do you contact DSW when you have discovered a leak so that they can evaluate potential drinking water contamination?
So if we have a spill or any sort of a leak like that, generally they'll likely be notified because we'll be digging around their utilities. So they would know that way. But in terms of, a leak with respect to, do we notify them to do testing on their aquifer if we have a sewer spill? I would say no. That's not part of our procedures.
Could it become part of your procedures to inform them whenever if you have a detection of a leak?
It could. We could let them know.
I mean, that whole interagency communication issue, I think, is one that's a challenge across the board, particularly when there's these different jurisdictions and everybody's overextended. I would certainly support that kind of process as you're setting up your SOPs, that if there's indication of significant leakage coming out as well as in to the sewer pipes, that you contact all the various agencies that may be impacted by it, to protect the population. Erica, you have a comment.
I just wanted to add really quickly to that nobody really is sampling private water wells. So communication, I think, I don't ever really think of, that Kilkaha or Hilo area having private water wells. But if they do, like it would be good to, along with Department of Water Supply, just a quick notice of a broad, if you do have private water wells in this area, maybe they can have them tested, the homeowners themselves.
Lee, you have a question.
Yes, this is Commissioner McIntosh. I just wanted to point out that in Hawaii, for the most part, their private water wells are very rare, and I think there are only a handful in the entire state. Most of it belongs to the state, so I don't really see that as much as a big issue or concern for the county, especially on the Big Island.
They're heavily used in HPP and the Puna district. People definitely drill for, and that's why I don't really see the connection with the county system just because we're so far removed. But if there are private water wells within the county system, that's all I was referring to.
Dell.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. You mentioned SOPs, Georgine, and Chris mentioned having consultants look up or maybe establish policies to address certain things. We should already, or I think the county should already have policies in place, and maybe given the circumstances of late, just include that in the existing policies rather than having a consultant draw up a new policy to reflect everything that's happening now, because that would be costly. And that's all I need to say about that. Thank you.
Okay. And I think when you're saying policy, you're probably meaning the procedures. DEM,
Yes.
and the consultants are setting the policy.
Well, I think because Chris had mentioned having consultants help draft up different policies to address
procedures. The
procedures. Yeah. So, but shouldn't the county already have, such as the spill that happened in June? I mean, it was as if they had no policy in place. So all I'm saying is we need to maybe look back at all the different policies that's been drafted and should have been implemented. And if as things change because the circumstances and the frequency of the spills we can include a better procedure handling. But I think communication is key, you know, whether we think so or not, because as a state and as a county, health is a priority. And so it shouldn't matter whether it's within our jurisdiction or not. I think it is. So again, thank you so much.
Thank you. Any other comments from commissioners? I see a comment from Alan.
Chair.
Excuse me, Laura.
Chair, I do have a just, you know, in terms of the timeline and urgency, it seems that if the county is moving forward with the vertical build for a new wastewater treatment plant, it would really make sense, especially if we have so much intrusion with heavy rain events, which we know that happens a lot in Hilo. And then, you know, the system does get overloaded because of the pukas in the system with the rainwater event. And then that's where we have the pump blowouts, and we have situations where we have too much water for the pumps to handle. So the pumps then get turned, and that's when we have other spills, or I'm sorry if it's the technical term is not spill, but at any rate, if we're building a new one and we're having saltwater intrusion going into that new system, then we're going to damage that system. Is that your understanding? I mean, that's my understanding. So if you can kind of comment on that in terms of prioritizing fixing the collection system and the holes in the collection system prior to a new system. I mean, a new treatment plant.
So, you know, unfortunately, the treatment plant, you know, the treatment plant, it actually is something that should be occurring synonymously, right? So the collection system repairs in the ideal world with, you know, everything, the collection system repairs should be occurring at the same time as your vertical construction. Because, right, if you can't get the flow there, what's the point of having a treatment plant, right? And if you get the flow to the treatment plant and the treatment plant doesn't work, then you're going to have polluted water leaving. Okay. So I would see it as it needs to be done in parallel. And so, you know, we you know, the treatment plant is in disrepair. A lot of the process areas are, you know, dilapidated. They're not performing. And, you know, our analysis has shown that we're at a point where, you know, in a lot of the areas that they just need to be reconstructed rather than tried to be rehabilitated. So that's where the Hilo project comes from. So now as we're assessing our collection system and finding pukas or finding areas of, you know, high infiltration inflow, we need to repair those as well. And the other thing I want to note is, you know, again, all of Hilo's wastewater is pumped. So the challenge with seawater is the high salt content, right? It's corrosive. Wastewater is already corrosive, and now you're adding, you know, additional corrosiveness to it. So each mechanical thing that gets touched, each metal surface that gets touched, you know, is potentially, you're putting more wear and tear on it. Additionally, you're using more electricity because your wastewater volume is increasing. So, you know, to answer your question of priority, I think they're synonymous. We need to fix both of them. I don't, you know, I know the financial component is a huge component. I know our financial team is working very diligently to find us the resources and help us get the resources we need to get the things done. You know, as engineer, I can just provide the design and the prioritization.
I think this somehow leads in, and I saw Ramsey briefly pop up. I don't know if he's on the line, but maybe it's time to move to the first item under unfinished business, and that was getting a presentation from Carollo on the integrated wastewater management plan, which obviously the whole system of collection and treatment is what it's all about, and trying to juggle all the pieces that need to be fixed. So are we ready to move to that topic area? That means somebody from Corolla is here to make a presentation, and Ramsey's around to fill in.
So if Ramsey's not around, I can fill in, but
You want
we
to
do
get
have
going?
our
Oh, there it
Corolla
is.
team.
Yeah,
I just double check with Ari. We're okay to move to the next, that topic, the integrated wastewater management. Okay, doing it. Go, Chris.
So sorry, did I hear Ramsey? Ramsey, are you on the iPhone?
No, could you please continue, Chris? Because I'm multitasking. I'm just logged on my phone to
Sure.
kind of leave my left ear to you guys and my right ear still in the settlement. But Chris,
Okay.
please move forward.
Sure. All right. So first of all, I wanted to, introduce our team from Carollo. So Carollo's been tasked with the challenge of putting together our wastewater facilities and cesspool conversion plans. And so the county's vision for this was to help us understand, and create a plan for, dealing with all of our cesspools that we have on island, as we are the island with the most cesspools, and also looking at our existing facilities and understanding what the impacts are to the existing facilities. So, we have Jason, we have Lance with our Carollo team, and they're going to go ahead and, and I think Gary as well. Yep, Gary's on. And they're going to just go ahead and kind of go through the presentation and just give you an overview of our current approach.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. So I'll go ahead and begin. My name is Gary Dice. I'm with Carollo Engineers. And as Chris mentioned, we have a contract with Department of Environmental Management to prepare wastewater facilities plan and cesspool conversion plans. I'll be assisted today in the presentation by Jason Nikaido and Lance Lamb, so you'll be hearing from them as well. Now, I want to preface the information that we're going to present today is all draft. We're still getting input from staff, we'll be getting input from county administration, county council, and the public. But it's our effort to update the commission on where we are to date. But things could change because this is a draft document. As we go through the discussion, you want to keep it informal. So if you have questions, you have comments, please feel free to raise your hand or make a comment. So Lance, why don't you advance to the next slide, please? So our objective for today is to provide an overview of the components of the wastewater facilities and the cesspool conversion plans and how they relate to the overall integrated wastewater master plan that's required by the administrative order on consent with EPA. We want to summarize public outreach efforts completed to date and provide the commission feedback on the public's comments that we've received. And then we're going to present an updated cesspool conversion planning activities that have been ongoing. So that's next slide, Lance. So our just overall discussion topics agenda for this morning. I'll provide an overview of the wastewater facilities plan, the cesspool conversion plan. Lance will be talking about public outreach completed to date. And then Jason will be reviewing the cesspool conversion plan status, talking about conversion categories, criteria that we've used for developing the draft sewer extension projects for the existing sewer service areas, as well as the criteria that we've used for identifying potential new decentralized collection treatment opportunities. And then we'll summarize the overall potential cesspool conversions by type of method later in the presentation and talk about schedule. Lance, next slide, please. So just an overview of the wastewater facilities and cesspool conversion plan. Lance, go ahead. So the cesspool conversion plan and wastewater facilities plans are key elements of this integrated wastewater master plan that's required by the AOC in January of 2027. There are other inputs to this wastewater master plan as well, in accordance with the agreement with EPA. They include operation and maintenance manuals for the sewage pump stations and all the wastewater treatment plants, regional plans for Puna and Puko and other areas that are essentially complete at this point, as well as an organizational structure to be submitted by the county to show how the county is going to staff and implement the overall AOC program. But the cesspool conversion plan and wastewater facilities plan are really key components of this overall integrated plan. So I'll talk about the wastewater facilities plan first. The plan will incorporate all the recommendations for extending existing sewer service areas that we'll be talking about. We'll also identify wastewater treatment plant and sewage pump station improvements, address condition assessments that have been identified through condition assessments. If there's any capacity that's needed for cesspool conversions, that would be addressed in the facilities plan, as well as the potential future regulations that may impact primarily effluent requirements from the treatment plants. We'll then take this analysis and develop an overall capital improvement plan, or CIP, that incorporates the existing county CIP, which you talked about already in the meeting this morning. Hilo is an example, wastewater collection system improvements are examples, and then the AOC required projects, all part of the existing plan, and then any new capital projects that are identified as part of the facilities planning effort. That's a summary of overall basic what we're talking about with the facilities plan. The cesspool conversion plan will incorporate findings and recommendations for conversion of all 48,600 cesspools in the county. And there'll be three primary methods for conversion. One would be the extension of the existing county sewer service areas. The second would be potential new decentralized systems with a new package plant or connection to an existing non-county treatment plant, or conversion to an upgraded individual wastewater system that's approved by DOH. This last method, IWS conversion, is the full responsibility of the Department of Health and not necessarily the responsibility of the county. And you'll see later that about over 60% we're expecting of the conversions in the county to be to an approved IWS system. We'll talk more about that. So that's kind of just a general overview of what we're working on. And we'll stop now and see if there's any comments or questions, and then we'll move into the discussion of public outreach and the public input we've received to date. Okay.
Any
Lance?
questions?
Okay, sure.
Okay, go ahead. Continue. I'm not seeing any questions from commissioners.
Okay, all right, thank you. Lance, go ahead.
Okay, thanks, Gary. So I just wanted to do a quick overview of our first public outreach. Our first round of public outreach was held this past February. We were able to visit all across the island of Hawai'i to 4 locations. The first location was at the old Kona Airport Pavilion. Second one was at Antisali's Hale. Third one was at the Na'alehu Community Center. And the fourth one was at the Kohala Intergenerational Center. At all of these events, we were able to hand off to all the attendees comment cards and also surveys. The intent of these comment cards and surveys was for us to gather a little bit more of a intel and insight from the public and all the attendees of what topics and concerns they had regarding cesspool conversions. So after the event, we were able to compile all the comment cards and all the surveys, and I wanted to just highlight some of the topics that people want to talk about. First one is cost. With the cost, there were a lot of concern about the cost for the cesspool conversions, and people wanted to know what were those funding opportunities for them that they can, apply for and proceed with, and ultimately how were these things were going to get paid for. Another concern was if people had to pay twice, meaning that, hey, if they're trying to, convert to a IWS, are they going to have to connect down in the future to a sewer connection plan? So they were just they're having concerns about having to pay twice for sewer connection. Second topic was about the individual wastewater systems, also known as IWSs. A lot of people wanted more information regarding the cesspool conversion technologies that was out there. It's just more for public knowledge and see what they were able to, apply for their homes. Also, people had some concern about the effluent quality from septic tanks and if it's not significantly improved over their cesspools. Other concerns was site constraint for their homes. They want to know, hey, if I were to do the IWS, do I have enough space or land availability to, implement that on my property? Also, there was concern about adequate workforce availability, meaning, hey, who's going to be pushing this out? Do we have enough, contractors, engineers, and people to maintain all these IWSs? And they also wanted to know, like, hey, where can I get these types of homeowner resources? Who can I contact? Who can I connect with to get this job done? And also, they also had some other questions about just regulations on some of the residential uses, such as composting toilets and gray water systems. Last topic was the centralized and decentralized options. A lot of people had some questions regarding if there's recycled water opportunities on the island. They also wanted to know, hey, what's the possibility of connecting to a decentralized or non-council wastewater treatment plant? And also they wanted to figure out what the county's timeline and framing for the plans of sewering those areas. Lastly, they just wanted to have a little bit more public knowledge and information about the improved water qualities that these types of technologies, would have. At our last, at each of the meetings, we did this type of activity with all the participants. So the purpose of this activity with all attendees was so we could figure out what aspects of the cesspool conversion are most important for them and their community. We want to know, hey, what's their interest, what they want to know about, and what impacts them the most. So there were 6 boxes. There were boxes used to represent each of the aspects of the cesspool conversion. First aspect or concern was construction costs. Second one was annual operation and maintenance costs. Third one was the responsibility of the operation and maintenance. Fourth one was compliance with legislative requirements. Fifth one was the utilization and availability of the land. And lastly, environmental concerns. So with these 6 boxes, we had this open for everyone to, put their little votes and tallies on. So each participant was given 3 tickets to vote. And ideally, this is the results. As you can see, highlighted in the red and orange, these were the main concerns that people wanted to have, I guess, more information and what they thought was important. So construction costs, along with environmental concerns, was one of the areas of highlights that they wanted to get more information about and what hit home with them. So this just gives a good summary of what people were thinking and what kept them up at night. So this basically summarized our first round of public outreach. I just wanted to leave this time open for everyone if you have any questions or comments about the public outreach. Okay, hearing none, I'm gonna pass it off to Jason, talk about the cesspool conversion plan and status update.
Hey, good morning. We're going to discuss our approach to our cesspool conversion methods for the county's 48,600 cesspools. As you can see from this figure here, cesspools are located all around the island, and Hawaii County actually has the largest amount of cesspools in the state. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so we developed 3 categories for our cesspool conversion methods. I'm going to discuss each of the 3 here, and you can kind of think of it as categories or spheres. So we're going to start kind of close to the treatment plant and the existing collection system, and then work our way further. So sphere 1, which is closest to the existing collection system, it's going to be within the initial sewer extension service boundary area. and these cesspools must connect to a sewer system extension project and the treatment plant. And the flows from these cesspools will be within the treatment plant and collection system capacities, so no additional upgrades to the existing infrastructure is anticipated. As we move to sphere 2, further away from the treatment plant and sewer system, the cesspools lie outside of the service area boundary. They may be feasible to connect to the sewer system and treatment plant, but with the flows from these cesspools, it may require expansion to the systems, either to the treatment plant or to the collection system pipes leading up to the plant. With these cesspools as well, there's potential for decentralized, where those groups of cesspools will kind of pull together and have their own treatment plant. And lastly, they can also convert via IWS. And lastly, sphere 3, furthest away from the sewer system, we have cesspools where it is probably not feasible to have a decentralized or connect to the existing sewer system. So these cesspools will primarily be converted with IWS. Okay, next slide. Okay, so the next few slides, we're going to do a kind of conceptual rendering of kind of how we would expect the cesspools to convert, and then we'll have a example showing the Hilo basin. Yeah, so here we have existing collection system and treatment plant. Okay, next slide. And then as we move to sphere 1, further away from the treatment plant, we have cesspools that are dense enough and located close enough to the existing sewer system where we can extend the system and connect these cesspools to the system. And then moving on to sphere 2, these are a little bit further away and they have more options. We can either, if it's feasible, extend the sewer system to serve them. They can have a decentralized system or convert via IWS. If they do extend, you can see in the purple that it might include treatment plant expansion or sewer system upgrades. And then lastly, sphere 3, further away from the sewer system, we have IWS conversion methods for the cesspools that are furthest away from the treatment plant. So the criteria we use to develop these projects, as you can see, they're listed below. We took into criteria such as prior EPA commitments that the county had, how big the lot sizes were, how close the cesspools were to the existing sewer, the available treatment plant capacity, what were the priorities set by the Department of Health's analysis of the cesspools, how dense the cesspools are. Typically, if cesspools are located, you have a lot of cesspools located closer together, it's more feasible to connect or have a decentralized system. We also looked at kind of neighborhood boundaries. We wanted to make sure we included entire neighborhoods and also affordable housing, DHHL properties, and commercial and industrial entities that require pretreatment under the AOC. Okay. Next slide. Okay, so here's an example for the Hilo service area. You see the existing collection system in brown with the treatment plant off to the right of the airport. Next slide. Okay, we move to sphere 1, where we have the potential project areas in green. So those cesspools would connect to the existing sewer system and treatment plant. Okay, I just want to point out that the purple areas are DHHL properties, and the county would need to work and coordinate with DHL to kind of figure out how DHL would want to connect or not connect to the sewer system. Okay, sphere 2, moving further away from the Hilo plant and collection system. That area is primarily south of Hilo, in the South Hilo. And there is a potential because of the density to connect, but it might lead to capacity expansion at the plant. And then lastly, you see the yellow dots. Those are individual cesspools that would be converted to upgraded IWS. Typically, these are less dense and further away, so the feasibility of connecting them to an existing sewer system is low. Okay, next slide. Okay, so based on our analysis for the 8 different treatment plants for the county, we identified 39 projects that would convert 8,649 cesspools connecting to existing systems. And then after that, we looked at decentralized systems. So here we have the kind of the criteria we use to identify those projects. We looked at kind of clusters of cesspools, 50 cesspools within 1/8 of a mile radius. And with that kind of overlay and analysis, we identified 66 areas covering over 17,000 cesspools. And then we removed areas within service area boundaries. And then we also looked at, okay, with these clustered cesspools, would it make sense to group them together if they're close enough so they can share a treatment plant? So we looked at that versus individual treatment plants. And we also added the Puaco community because of their desire to have a decentralized system or connect to a treatment plant. And this resulted in 26 potential projects.
Excuse me.
Jason, we have a question. Yeah, sorry.
Jim, go ahead. Was it Jim who had the question? No? I don't know who had the question. I'll ask the question.
I have a question. I was wondering, this seems to in scope the already residential areas and that sort of thing. But on the Kona side, there's been a potential for new stuff going in the northern part of the town, and I was wondering, are they going to increase the piping in that area as well, or is this and is the developer going to assist in that money, or is this not in your scope? I'm just wondering.
So this part of the project is focusing on how we're going to convert the cesspools. The development side and the kind of how the undeveloped land connects is going to be part of our facility plan coming later.
Okay, thank you.
I had a question on when you say decentralized, that includes or does not include private treatment works?
That does include private treatment works, so non-county treatment plants.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions right now?
I'll throw mine out there. It's more of just the numbers. Is there have you folks looked at how many cesspools are in each sphere of conversion that you're putting together?
Yes, and that'll be coming up a little bit.
Thank you.
Okay, so here we have a summary of the decentralized opportunities. So there are 26 potential decentralized opportunities with 9,723 cesspools covered through these opportunities, and they are located across the county. largest areas would be Hilo and Kealakehe. And note that even though we are identifying them as decentralized, they still could potentially convert via IWS if there's no traction within the community to decentralize amongst themselves. Okay. Next slide. Okay, so here's a summary of the three different spheres. So sphere 1 would convert approximately 18%, sphere 2, 20%, and sphere 3, 62% of the cesspools. So still the largest percentage conversion method would be IWS. And then with that, Gary is gonna finish us up with the our anticipated schedule.
Okay, so here's where we're anticipating we'll be as into next year with this work. I want to note it's a kind of pending county management confirmation, and that we're going to be beginning this process of involving county administration, council, and the public. And depending on the input received from each of those groups, this could impact the schedule. But here's what we're anticipating at this point. We'll have a draft cesspool conversion plan available for public review in the second quarter of next year. We'll have a draft facilities plan available for public review in the third quarter of next year, and then draft what we're calling the integrated wastewater management plan, which is the executive summary of these two reports, the cesspool conversion plan, the facilities plan, late Q3 2025. Are there any questions about the schedule, the content of the cesspool conversion plan, of the facilities plan, public outreach, any of the information that Jason presented? We're available to answer questions.
I see a hand from Erica.
Yeah. Can you walk us through a little bit about the integration process of what you receive from community and the input and how it's being integrated into the plans and into your process?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. Clearly there's a lot of concern about costs, and there's a lot of and so that really gets into how all these projects, the sewer extension projects, are going to be funding, what kind of support the county's going to provide, either on the technical side or not. And those are issues that we're just now getting into discussions with staff about. But all those concerns that were raised are things that we feel that need to be addressed and will need to be responded to the public at the next round of public outreach. Lance, do you have anything you want to add to that?
No, that was good, Gary. That's all.
Erica, did that answer your question?
It did. Yes. Thank you. Yeah. So if I understand correctly, it's understood that it's a priority to integrate it, but the how or in what fashion is not necessarily clear.
Yeah, not at this time.
Gonzalo.
Gonzalo Garcia, District 7. So I've talked to some folks in my area, and I guess I'm wondering, did this come up in any of your public meetings? What I'm hearing from some folks is there's a concern that, okay, we're going after cesspools, but as the IWS systems age out, are those going to start being looked at as a potential risk? And should those be, like some voluntary basis for people to move from IWS to a more centralized system?
Yeah, clearly at this point, we're focused on the conversion of the cesspools by the 2050 deadline. If an individual wastewater system is implemented by a property owner, I think we just want to emphasize that the maintenance of that system is on the property owner. The permitting of that system is with the state. It's with the Department of Health. And so, those future conversions of septic tanks that may fail or haven't been maintained properly are all under the jurisdiction of the Department of Health.
Okay, thank you.
I had a question, and it's probably not for you, but for Ramsey. It sounds like you're looking, very focused time-wise on meet that 2050, 2035, who knows what dates are coming in with a cesspool conversion, and not future planning. Specifically, we're in this process right now of looking at a general plan update for 2040, is that right? And how is, I think it'd be the integrated wastewater management plan dealing with the issue Erica raised of future development expectations. Are you just looking at the smaller box, not that it's small, but smaller, of cesspool conversions and fixing our decrepit wastewater treatment plants, and not what we're going to need in the next 20 years?
Oh, it's a good question, but the answer is no, that's not the intent. What you see before you today is one portion of the integrated wastewater management plan. They still have to do facility planning. The facility planning consists of looking at the facility in the sphere that provide the facility, the wastewater to. We done it 3 different spheres. Sphere number 1 is to take care of the current situation under the AOC. Sphere number 2, that's where the planning comes in, Georgianne, is how do we want to move to that sphere number 2 for existing and proposed developments. Sphere number 3, that may take you way beyond the 2040. And everything we doing is intertwined, and that's where you guys need to come in and help us in identifying policies and procedures from the planning documents that we are working on now. So the intent, once Corolla finish and finalize their product, it's upon us to sit down and start looking at code changes, planning department subdivision requirements. Because right now, we know pretty much what we're going to deal with, either based on existing or a new development, based on certain capacity that we have to divvy up to all these entities within these spheres. Cost is very important, as it becomes prohibitive to even connect people beyond sphere 2 and 3. It's unfortunate the county had outpriced themselves from a sewer service because it was not planned correctly from day one. We should have had a dry sewer to every subdivision that was constructed. Hopefully this moving forward, that will allow us to plan better if we're going to continue providing sewer service. So the concept is, this is what's going to get us to start implementing new policies and procedures moving forward to improve any future projects or subdivisions or developments. It's all covered under what we're trying to achieve. So you're going to have a roadmap to cover your immediate need and also to set policies and procedure for the future. Hopefully that answered your question, Georgia.
Well, I mean, the detail is going to be the devil of us. I know, looking at the whole progress of the general plan, public interaction, and how that's being developed, and the base provision of infrastructure to support growth on this island is a big hole. It's murky. Nobody knows. And I'm not not sure who's talking to whom. Is that a discussion that the DEM is having with planning on, there may be some places where we don't allow development because we cannot do anything but do the conversion of these cesspools, because that's going to overwhelm us on its own. And to think about adding in more people and more services that we don't have is frightening to me.
So
It is. I think our staff has been working with the planning department, looking at their 2045 general plan. Our consultant has a copy of the plan as well, as we were laying the spheres and priority areas. Like I said, it's not an easy, it's a complex strategy that we're trying to connect all the dots together to come up with a very clear roadmap. So the idea of, your current facility has a certain capacity. We at maybe half of that capacity for Hilo, less than half for the west side. So we need to bring these capacities, and the capacity that we allow to bring in is going to determine the number of connection or conversion you could make. So they all kind of connected. Outside that capacity or that limitation, it become a planning issue. And that's where we need to sit down with the planning department, the mayor, and everybody else's, and strategize, from a subdivision point of view, from the size of the lots. So you could, probably go with 1 acre or more subdivisions outside sphere number 2 and 3. So all that discussion is gonna start happening once we have the plan completed. But in the meantime, we need to start thinking of policies and procedures that we could drive out of this plan. Facility planning is still in the work, and from integration and meeting the demand of the public, they'll have a better roadmap. Our goal is, like we said, is people could be able to log in and understand their options so they don't have to spend the money twice to replace their current system. We got to target affordable housing and commercial, industrial, and state, because these are the entities that's going to put the infrastructure for us to help the residents hook up. So, the strategy is a good example. That project we did for the affordable housing on the west side, 1.5 miles of sewer. Now that's going to open the windows for the people on cesspool to be able to tie into that sewer line if it happens to sit within their boundary. So our goal and intention is strategically lay the ground to minimize the cost for residents to be able to afford conversion.
I want to say I really appreciate and agree with your approach of the spheres and planning for different options within those spheres. I think you're approaching it right. I'm just looking a little bit longer term. And when I think integration, I'm thinking the whole island and the future, and how do we begin to bring the pieces together. And I think this is going to be a good base. It's how do we build on it? What are the principles we're using to look at where we devote our limited resources? So I appreciate your work, guys. Erica. You're muted.
I pulled my hand down and didn't unmute myself. Just a quick question around the criteria. Those criteria, were they just equally weighted across all criteria, or were some of the criteria weighted differently? And then within that, just because it's part of the criteria kind of question. The cesspool density, was there a threshold that was looked at within your threshold density criteria that was kind of like an indicator to recommend individual wastewater systems, or a call out of, EPA has thresholds for these kind of individual wastewater systems already established? Were those thresholds used to kind of flag community density areas, to then sway of, okay, these areas should be sewered? Because that kind of
So
addresses, I think, the question around just can also lead into kind of the future development question, is that we do have communities that are high dense cesspool areas, and are they being looked at in a specific way under your criteria?
So what to the first part of your question about the cesspool density. So the Corolla team kind of came up with a cluster analysis. And so with their cluster analysis, the way that they put it together was they used our DOH state requirements for the ability to install a septic system. So DOH has specific criteria for septic systems, a minimum lot size, various other parameters. So what the Corolla team was able to do is say, okay, if we have a cluster of cesspools within a certain amount of area, then likely DOH isn't going to permit IWS in that area. And those community members are going to be faced with coming up with a different solution. And so that was the whole premise of our cluster analysis. So within that cluster analysis, we say, okay, well, this would be a decentralized. So this group of people are so tightly packed, their lots are so small that we're not convinced that the state is going to let them put in IWS. So that's why they would be within the decentralized, criteria. We also took into account another criteria that was used was proximity to an existing facility. So potentially, somebody could be close enough to an existing, smaller wastewater treatment facility that they could potentially, connect to that. Now, in terms of our criteria and weighting factors, so within each proposed within the sphere, so say within sphere 1, you have 15 projects. So each one of those projects, we came up with a weighting criteria for weighting factor for each of the criteria, and we scored them and ordered them in priority. So that way, we would know. And then once agencies and internally administration, everybody is aligned, and we have a workable, presentable draft, then we'll be looking at getting and sharing all of that for public input and all of that. But we just don't have a public engagement plan kind of put together at this point, because everything at this point is very fluid.
So thank you. Just to follow it, what is the density that was looked at and weighted? What is that density that was used?
Forgive me, Lance and Jason, it was 1/8 of a
50 cesspools per 1/8 of a mile.
Per 1/8 of a mile. Okay.
Yeah, 49. So what you guys end up doing, they use Department of Health, 49 lots. You could, do septic, right? So one of the criteria, but just keep in mind, it goes back, we build the whole city based on 49 lots at a time. So
Right.
what we face in with now, if you look at Hilo, could somebody look back the Hilo plans? Just to give you an idea of the challenges. So go ahead and put Hilo plan of view of the areas.
Yeah, just give us a minute. We'll
Yeah,
get that back up.
So the idea is, it's not one size fits all, because Hilo may be different than Honoka'a, it could be different than Kealakea. But look at these areas. Homes are so dense, even outside sphere number 2 and 3, right?
Right.
But you cannot. But some of them criteria, because some of these lots are 1 acre or larger, even within sphere 2, you have very dense communities. But we looked at, the size of the lots, and definitely the 49 lots, you're gonna hit that criteria quick, right? Because it's a whole city built around that concept of 49 lots. So, but affordability is a major factor. So the Sphere 2 considered expansion of the facility or decentralized or IWSs. So within Sphere 2, the 3 options looked at, and the criteria is it even feasible from a construction cost to include Sphere 2, even though they dense, versus having to do decentralized versus IWSs. Unfortunately, we need to face it. Not everyone is going to be able to connect, and that's a fact. So we're not going to be like city and county where they 90% connected, because it just affordability is not going to happen. I mean, cost-wise, it's probably not going to happen unless we spend billions and billions of dollars and be like the city at $300 to $800 a month sewer rate fee.
Well, I think
So,
that is that not where we explore how development and how CIP projects can bring down that cost? And I think that that's kind of, and I recognize that's your next phase of this report. And so I'm super keen and interested to hear where that arrives. I feel that though two things, I guess, is my takeaway is one is this is an overlap again of where departments, I guess, can cross-pollinate each other with information, and that I'm hoping that this is a loud and clear message to the planning department of how we're utilizing this density rule is really setting up our county for fiscal failure or fiscal challenges in the future when these structures and when these areas need basic infrastructure. So one is I hope that that is happening with the planning department, and if we can help as a commission echo that request, maybe that's a great role for us as well as a commission. And then again, to just go and reiterate is that this is not, we do have current needs, we do have current emergencies, both found within communities as well within our natural environment of our shoreline health and marine health. And so I recognize the urgency. I see the layers of challenge and concern. And I think it is kind of attempting to try to do everything all at once and really relying on that really kind of communication between departments to be able to look at the future of Hawaii County and see, where we want to go within our development.
Yeah, you're right, Eric. And I think that's, it's a major challenge. And I think that's where we all need to get together. Even you guys will be a major help on trying to navigate through policies and procedure that could benefit the future of the county. And yeah, control costs. You guys heard city and county is going to be at 244 by 2035 a month just for sewer rate fee. And the reason their costs is still, you know, it's going to be way lower than ours because the volume of customers they have, it's a huge in comparison to our county. If we do it here within our county and within the residents we have, it's a huge dollar figure per month. Our people cannot afford it.
Dot, you had a question, comment.
Yes, I'm concerned about the level of treatment at the IWSs that you're hoping to install. Are you, since it's mostly residential, I imagine you will have a lot of organics, but not much toxics in them. Are you going to, are you thinking of a complex system, or you're going to be able to recycle the water in those? It's a possibility to do groundwater recharge as well. So just out there.
No, it's, yeah, I mean, you bring in a good point that we keep hearing it all the time. You know, septic is not a better system as cesspool. It's a little bit improvement, what have you. But, you know, as engineers and planners or, you know, scientists, when we look at these issues, you look at it from kind of holistic point of view. We don't just look at septic, you know, number one, you know, CDC already, you know, came out with reports based on the proper disposal of effluent. It could achieve, you know, the ground level discharge requirement into recharge requirement. So the concept is, you know, cost plays a major factor. How far is it from groundwater? How far is it from shorelines? What are the benefits? And in addition to that, technologies are improving, you know, and things probably gonna get better and better as we move forward. The septic is still a good system if you could design the leach line in accordance to the requirement. You know, if you have 1 acre, you know, that's, you could reuse that effluent for your trees, non-human consumption trees that could absorb these leachate coming out of your leach fields. But you have to plan for it. You have to change the codes. And that's what I was saying, policies and procedures need to be implemented, where we maybe need to start looking at the building code again and do black and gray plumbing within the house to allow the gray water to go back to your landscape area rather than going into your septic. So there's all that's gonna, you know, what we doing now and what we talking about, exactly what we intend to happen is to get a brainstorm discussion between all parties to find the best solution moving forward. Laura, you got your hand.
Aloha, thank you for this information. Very, very enlightening and informative. Director, I'm curious, do you have, of those policy suggestions, is it going to be part of this report or coming after the report? Will you have some suggestions coming from the department that we could start as a base, start with the commission looking through?
A great question. It's going to be a combo. Definitely, we are start in our, you know, own department, kind of connecting the dots of, you know, what type of policies and procedure we would like to see, because we have 5 AOCs. One of them, the pre-treatment. Pre-treatment is going to play a major factor. commercial industrial cannot stay on septic tank or cesspools because it just under the pre-treatment when you're navigating to see who's going to be able to convert and what. So yes, and we want you, the commission, to be able to review this and start coming up with your own policies and procedure that also could subsidize the department stance on policy and procedures. And definitely the public, this next meeting. And as you see from the first meeting, we created an exercise for the public to tell us what is their most important thing that they would like to see. So we participated with the public, you guys, us, the administration, county council. So it's collaborative effort. We're not going to work in silo. That's not the intent. The more that we get you guys involved, the better the policies and procedures could be developed to benefit the future of the county.
Is there just following up on that, Chair, if I may, is there a timeline, or when can we expect perhaps a draft of some of these policy changes, roughly or specifically?
The draft is depend on the people that's going to start sharing some of their thoughts, so we could put draft together. So the idea is we working on the plan. Hopefully, once the plans are complete, we could at least from our department, we could start thinking what we foresee. But if you guys could start sharing with us any ideas, so we could start working on the draft as well, including within our draft, that would be perfect.
Okay, so just to be clear, you're waiting for us, but is there already some suggestions coming from the department?
There is suggestion. I just told you about the pre-treatment, but we haven't drafted any of it yet. So we
Sorry, maybe I'm not being clear. So just I'm talking about more specific code changes, in that we all have access to the code language and such, but just being that you're much more familiar with the specific codes, what is coming out right now from all of this research, from the gathering and from the department as for specific code change requests. And then we all work on it.
The code change is draft. We are working on it as part of the pre-treatment. I don't know, Chris, where are you guys at on the code change?
So in May and then subsequently in June, we did release a couple versions of our proposed code changes for comment. The code was more weighted towards pre-treatment. However, we had proposed several updates to various development connection, development, sewer connection, changes. So there is a working draft available. As of late, the county is, continuing to, put in comments that we've received at the staff level. And also, we are hoping to incorporate some additional comments from this, or some additional, potential updates from the cesspool conversion plan, as well as the integrated wastewater master plan.
Thank you, Chris. So Laura, we had it out since May and June. So you guys please review it.
Yeah.
And if you guys foresee any changes, additions, because it's a working document. But if we cannot get comments from you guys to the May and June draft that we shared, is not, we're going to end up finalizing it without your comments. And then you guys going to say, well, we haven't seen it. We haven't submitted comments. So I urge you to go back to
tell you what, I will
share that because
I'll get Peter to send out the latest draft, whether it's May or June version to everybody. I will try to take a whack at highlighting sections where there are these policy. I mean, there's a lot of
It's very dense.
jargony,
Very
how you do
dense.
pre-treatment with what kind of pipes and what kind of filters, and yeah, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the bigger issues of who can do what in the public. So I'll see if I can maybe highlight that for everybody. And
Well, I know
go
that this
back.
conversation,
So it's not quite as
so
deadly to read. But yeah, I think we can start. It's a lot easier working off of a draft, or if you have a list of policy issues that you're working from, that we can comment against. But if we want us to start up de novo, let's try and see what we can pull together for next meeting in November, okay? Making a note for myself. Any other comments from commissioners on this topic?
can I quickly add the 2 recommendations that I heard from Ramsey, and just make sure that they're either attached or associated with that list in some way, which is the cesspool density of the 50 over 1/8 of a mile, and the black and gray water use regulations. And those were 2 that I just wrote down. So I don't know if others heard more recommendations.
Yeah, and also we need to start thinking about dry sewer. Right now, it's within the hand of Department of Health, but I think any future development, they need to start thinking about putting the system in so we don't have to come back and tear up the roads and try to reconstruct it. So all these are foreseeable, and that's what we kind of did on the first draft of the code change. But yeah, please, you guys know probably the issues more than anybody else's. So anything that you guys would like to change or see changed to help the future of this county when it comes to sewer services, that'll be awesome.
Okay. Tell you what, it's now 11 o'clock. We probably need a bio break. But also, Peter, make a note. I'd like to get a copy of the presentation slides sent out to everybody. So we will have something again to chew on and come up with more questions. And let's take a bio break, come back in 5 minutes because we've got many other things on our agenda. Thank you. Okay, we're back at quorum. Thank you very much. We'll get the slides out, presentation slides. We'll get out something reminding you of the pretreatment and wastewater code changes. And I'll try to do some highlighting on those so that we can have some real meat to chew on at next meeting. I'm wondering, Erica, are you back on? I see, there you are. We have your item under new business. Whether, I don't know how quickly we can get through that.
Absolutely. You know what, with this conversation, I don't feel that it needs to be a huge discussion, especially with what we just reviewed.
Okay. Well, I'll defer.
It was just more my so wanting to call out opportunities that were potentially state, such as state parks and other initiatives that are coming from state CIPs, as not just private developers as being potential collaborators in sanitation, movement and progression forward, but also the state and state parks that lie within communities and shoreline areas where cesspools need to be upgraded and sanitation needs are also urgent to address. That, again, just calling those projects and opportunities for collaboration and wanting to incentivize that.
Well, let me defer it for next time, and we'll give DEM a chance to come back with us, maybe with some thoughts, since they'll be working away at the funding part of the integrated wastewater management plan. Unless,
So-
Chris, you know something off the top of your head about.
Well, sorry, I just want to further clarify that request. So in terms of that, so for example, Ms. Perez, you're looking at it from a perspective of if the state had a building that had a cesspool and connection to our sewer system was, say, a half-mile away, that the county would say, state, to close your cesspool, you need to install this half-mile of sewer. And then as a benefit, all the people in between the state building and the county sewer system could connect. Am I understanding that correctly?
Or a variation of that, yes. I mean,
Okay.
there are examples of that even within, I know we frequently speak of Puako and the heavy movement that community has made over, many, many years in trying to advance sanitation. And they have state parks that are, directly adjacent to them that see high number of visitors per year and support our local tourism dollars, especially for Hawaii County. And so what are opportunities like that within state projects and CIP projects and their assets to be able to partner with our county? The one that brought this up specifically was the park that's being proposed, which I live in HPP, so I'm very excited to see some kind of a community park in HPP and love what that could do for the community. I also am just curious of, is that an opportunity that could potentially help also and overlap with connection and transition goals and initiatives. That, and then I was also shared the CIP funds that were awarded for the Kona Airport wastewater treatment system at Kona Airport. And that also is in line, I think, with a lot of the Kealakahe service area. So again, just curious of, is there, conversation between state and county that could be had to look at these projects more into the future and create plans of potential benefits for funding and financing.
So just off the top of my head, on the Kona side, I do know that DOT Harbors just bid. They want to connect their, the Honokohau Harbor to, Kealakahe wastewater treatment plant. So we're in the process of, reviewing those plans. But yeah, we would potentially look at, our master plan and then request that, yes, hey, state, we do offer you wastewater treatment, but there is some improvements that we need help on, so that other folks, upstream can connect. The other thing I can think of at this point in time is, I think last year, DLNR was doing a, they have various commercial, industrial, parcels and whatnot. And so they were actually doing some studies with respect to what parcels were connected to cesspools. And so I got an interesting, the consultant that was working on that project reached out to us. And so we had a chance to kind of work with them. But if the state in those areas came back and said, well, we need to connect and, close our cesspools, then absolutely the county, as part of our standard, review process, would say, hey, we do have plans to connect folks in this area. Can you please install this, master planned infrastructure? If it's within, say, sphere 1, that would be kind of our, that would be our ask.
Erica, I think slide number 12 that our Corolla engineer presented to you guys today is very clear. Our criteria was affordable housing state, number 2. Number 2 priority, where we said State Department, DHHL, you guys need to lead by example. So, and that's why we ranked it number 2 on slide number 12. So it's already there. And to your point, discussion has been going on with the airport waste treatment plan, and with the idea if the county could take it over, expand it. So there is a lot of discussion that went on just about probably back in July. Our last meeting was with them. So, but yeah, our
That's
criteria, affordable housing, state departments, commercial, industrial, then residential. Commercial, industrial, they're going to play a major factor. We have a Costco here on the west side. They need to connect. So that, I mean, I know Chris went around, but it's there. It's part of the study that we use to identify areas within the spheres.
Okay.
great. Thank you.
Appreciate that. I'm not deferring it. We covered it. Another potential policy recommendation that we could make on setting up the procedure of any time money pops up anywhere, potential from the state or other EPA or whatever, go chase it and see whether or not there's a way to leverage, because we got to leverage every cent we can get hold of. Moving on to section number 7, reports correspondence. I am the first one just to let you know there is a sustainability summit, solid waste reduction workshop, Hawai'i, if you will, very informal, trying to put together ideas, primarily right now focused on the concept of a resource recovery park. And we're scoping it out. We had been chasing the idea of a federal grant and decided we weren't far enough along to go for it, but we haven't given up. We're working with it, working with Craig and with Alex in the solid waste group on ideas to scope that out as a public-private type of operation. The other is I'm just blanking. The legislation that we had sent to the council, slowly trying to flesh that out. I've made some drafting changes, but need to pick it up. But this is election time, so forget trying to get attention at the moment, but it's still on the docket. We are having a group meeting November 5th, so I'll have hopefully some more information to provide next meeting. We did send out from the motion from last meeting, the motion about support for water technician certification that went to the council and to DEM. We would also recommend that DEM take that letter and go run it past other appropriate agencies, HR department, finance, whoever, to go for it. The director's informational report, that was a written report that's in your package. I don't think there's any legislative update, but if there is, Ramsey, say.
I think we don't have any updates since our last meeting, unless Peter keeps a good job on keeping an eye on it. I still believe some of these policies and procedures we talked about, it could be legislatively driven. So my take at it, anybody is listening from state or rep, we need to target that 49 homes policy. I know, Erica, I've been bringing it since I started. If you recall, I brought it through the cesspool group committee with the state. There's certain legislative matters that we need to take at a state level. And we need to have somebody capable of taking it and carry that vehicle on and present it at a state level, start implementing changes. Otherwise, the old habits will continue. And if it continues, the harder and more difficult our duties and responsibility become, because I'm trying to stop the bleeding. And if it's going to continue bleeding, it's going to get us more and more deep into wastewater. But we need to identify all the potential obstacles that could allow to stop the bleeding so we could focus on what we have and build better moving forward.
I'm jumping ahead on future agenda items. I'm gonna try and see if I can come up with kind of a theme for next meeting around, all right, let's start laying out what the policies and procedures, less procedures, more policies and legislation that we think we need to push for the next year or so. Solid Waste Division projects and update. We got the report information within the director's report. Were there any questions for Craig's group? Oh, congratulations to Craig for his Supervisor of the Year award, whatever it was. Yes. Craig Kawaguchi, and a lovely picture, fabulous lay on the back of the director's report. So thank you for that and congratulations. Any comments, questions about the report? Otherwise, is Craig even on? He's on? He's quiet. Okay, I'm not hearing anything. No questions for him from the group. We all want to hear the solid waste operational analysis status update. Where is it?
Aloha, I can give you the update. This is Shalise. So last we spoke, the solid waste operational analysis was going to be resubmitted as a draft number 2. In accordance with the contract, the consultant requested for an extension of time with the director and the chief. They granted the consultant E2 an extension of time until November 25th to submit the second draft of the report. So that is the update.
Okay. Thank you. We,
You're welcome.
as you know, anxiously await the ability to chew it up. Item number 3 under section 7, wastewater division projects and updates. I don't know, Chris, if you were going to handle any news that we need to know about now?
So as far as our project updates, the most recent, so we provided the notice to proceed for the Pahala collection system construction project. So we're moving forward on that. We're starting to work with the contractors. Submittals are going to be coming in, so that's a real that's a great thing. The other thing is we provided a notice of I think it's a notice. It's not the formal award, but it's a notice of potential award to our contractor for Hilo. And so then we can get, the way that those contract documents are put together is we can start getting their schedule, their subcontractor submittals and that kind of thing. And then we look for actual award and notice to proceed in January of next year, because we're going through all of the various steps as far as funding from council and all of those things, but that is moving. So the other, some other just updates as far as projects go. Holly Halavai, I'm my planning work on that's done. I'm going to be receiving 100% bid documents on that project here at the end of this week. And that project is moving. We have the various we have the various AOC projects. So PUA, the pump station rehab, as well as the force main replacement. Those designs are also progressing as well. The most recent operational repair that we had, it's really great to see actually, is we actually installed a new centrifuge at Hilo, and we were able to, with this new centrifuge, we were able to put out 29% solids. And so there were various, operational challenges during startup, but we're pretty well finished up with startup. And so that will be, an improvement in that facility, at least until we can get all the construction and rehab done. So as far as major projects, I would also report that Coloco, the replacement of, train 1, has also, been completed. I'm closing that project out, and train 3 is online and working up in that facility as well. So, as far as projects, I think, for the time that we have, that's those are the biggest achievements at this time. And
Chris, you want to talk about the West Side Kalakea project?
So
what Chris was referring to is intent to award letter. That's the letter that was issued to the contractor to let him know that we intended to award the contract.
Yeah. So then, as far as Kealakekee, the R1 upgrade, AOC project upgrade. So that project, we have two consultants actually working on the design of that project. So we have engineering partners. They're working on finalizing our sand filter design, and then we have RMTEL Corporation working on the overall headworks repairs, as well as integrating the whole project to make sure it all functions. And so we're looking at the 100% bid documents, being ready for that early next year. And we're moving forward. We had to do some environmental permitting work, some section 106, some 6C on that project. So trying to get that finished up, have a couple of various letters and different things to get over to SHPD and stuff to get that closed out. But again, our goal is the AOC requirement for that project is September of next year. Our internal goal was January of next year, but I think realistically, after all the reviews, dealing with our own internal staffing challenges, I think realistically we'll have that project ready for construction in April or May, which is still ahead of the AOC, but again, later than we would have it liked. But anyway.
Okay. Again, I mentioned before the preliminary priority ranking for capital projects. I just thought it was important for the EMC to see there is a very deliberate priority ranking process for what projects are the highest risks that need to be addressed. and the kinds of factors that go into it. I thought it was very well done document, and appreciated seeing it. I think you guys have really gotten to the point of nailing down your process. We do have a question. Oh, wait a minute. I'm trying to read the things. There was a question from Ellen Fukamizo about, do we have drivers to operate the new trucks to haul sludge?
Well, the answer to that is at this point in time, yes, but let me preface that. So on budget, wastewater division has been approved for an equipment operator 3. So typically those equipment operator 3s generally exist within the Department of Public Works and also within our solid waste division. So, however, I haven't been able to get that EO3 allocated yet. We are working on it. But at this point in time, wastewater division would be reliant on using solid waste. So for the time being, what I've done is, the wastewater division has a tractor that we're going to be using to pull the new trailer. And so until I can get that position allocated through HR, all the inner workings of the county, then solid waste will be operating that vehicle, which is within their job description. They can do it, and they'll be helping us. Once we're finished, the new trucks and equipment are not sitting unused because solid waste will be, operating those until such time that I'm able to onboard and hire the EO3 that sits within wastewater division itself.
Okay, thank you. The next agenda item was a request from last time to talk about when you're doing the integrated wastewater management plan and thinking perhaps maybe instructions had been given on where you draw the boundaries of what Corolla was looking at, in particular with the perceived actual barriers to what your options are, specifically the Kono decision, but any other challenges. And you had offered last time, Chris, to describe to us, where you see the limits of your exploration of options.
So in terms of exploration of options as far as the Kono decision for
the wastewater integrated management master plan.
So in terms of, where are, the limitations, I think with the wastewater integrated master plan, when we look at that and we take into account the intent of the Kono decision, we just need to keep in mind that anything that we are already doing as county needs to stay that way. So potentially, like the city and county say our reused water, right? Distribution of reused water. City and county, they have somebody that through a private public partnership that they work with to distribute and take that reuse water. And so potentially, their wastewater branch is not necessarily involved in that. So with respect to our overall wastewater master plan, that could be one alternative on how the county, could, use a private public partnership, in in distribution of, say, reuse water for that respect. Because, right now wastewater really isn't, we're not in the water distribution business per se. We just take and we treat wastewater. We do, have the capability to produce R2 at our Coloco site, but at this point in time, we don't necessarily have a reuse water project that's ongoing. So I think that's one, thing. But, for us, as far as the Kono decision, I mean, it is, it's a challenge to balance because, as a wastewater division, we have to perform. I mean, I have to haul sludge regardless of if I have a driver or not, right? I have to, we have, we have to fix electrical problems whether I have an electrician or not, and so I think we have to get creative in how we address that and still, maintain our, the correct, follow the correct rules. That Georgine, did that address?
I'm trying to recall and if there is a different kind of angle to it. I think it was the issue of, as well, yes, you provide wastewater treatment, but you don't provide it everywhere. And so do you see it as categorically it's the county that has to provide wastewater treatment, or it's the county responsibility to keep doing what they're doing?
Well, I think, okay, so I think that's an interesting challenge. I think it goes back to, yes, the county is going to keep doing what it's doing, but as we close cesspools, right, you're going to have decentralized wastewater treatment facilities, right? As we build and develop our vacant land, potentially you may have a decentralized unit that has 400 or 500 homes connected to a package plant. And I think it comes into the question of the integrated wastewater master plan of, okay, so does the county, what are the public expectations of the county? Is it important to the public that the county have a way to take this infrastructure as dedicable, right? So now the county takes that package plant as a dedicable, package plant, and now, all the ratepayers are going to, provide income for that. Is it fiscally responsible for the county to do that? And is it important to the public? So I think that's something that, could potentially come out through the wastewater master plan, public consultation. And then there's the other side of, is that the direction that county administration wants to go? And so for me, I can't fully answer that question without, taking into consideration, the public, what is the public, desire, and also what is, at the administrations, our elected officials and councils, desire and directives as well.
So if I'm hearing you right, as of today, and the study that you've contracted with Corolla to work on the integrated wastewater master plan, you do not see that as a hard constraint at this time. It's something that's going to be a political issue, if you will, for the future.
I think it very well will be, because if we have, it goes into, if you're dealing with a decentralized community, right, and that community is large enough and willing to, meet the county's requirements for dedicable infrastructure, I think that could be a conversation that could be had. Additionally, on the development side, if you have a developer, that comes in and is building homes, which we're drastically short of, again, that's a conversation that could be had. And I think that it is something the county needs to look at with respect to our master plan, because I mean, it's an alternative. I don't necessarily have, I can't really make that determination, but I mean, I can't throw it out the window. It's definitely an alternative.
I guess, Josie, let me jump in and give you the answer. To your question, does Kuna decision impact the current plan? And how are you going to navigate? If the county has been doing anything within the county's restriction, we're going to continue doing it, but it doesn't mean we have to provide wastewater services to everybody in the county.
Yeah.
Remember, we have about 52 private waste treatment plants within the county. So we not the only entity provide wastewater. So, but we supposed to maintain the wastewater and collection and treatment to the people that provide the service to. So, but if John Doe comes in, want to build a new facility, they could do that.
Okay.
They
Good
could.
to hear. I want to get Erica as a comment and then Dot.
Yeah, thank you. I'm really excited just of this conversation today, and there's been a lot of work already done, and I'm even equally as excited because I think the next component is going to be more of the how, like more of like how are we going to really get there and make it achievable. You're internally within the DEM and planning, there's plans for future and current that are being redone, and then there's also the climate action plan that the county has come out with, and there is absolutely a wastewater and a reuse need highlighted within that climate action plan that again is another county division that calls out wastewater goals and initiatives into the future. And you know funding wise, even from an EPA federal component all the way down to how you fund wastewater initiatives are really being driven with like county or not county, I'm sorry, but community, voices, and how can community and where can community get involved and help work with their government in making these changes possible. Because I really hope that we don't just continue the course of what we've been doing, because I think that it's kind of gotten us into a mess that we're now all having to wade through and kind of find a path to something better, I hope. But look at those plans that also just another county division has put together, because they call out for the need for reuse within these wastewater systems. And there is from an environment perspective, a high demand for reuse, as we've seen on Maui and the devastation in Lahaina. So I think that's another way that we could utilize these plans that we've as a county. I see us kind of actually being ahead of the other counties in this regard with all of these plans. And so I'm excited to kind of make them applicable and drive these plans forward to get the funding needed in all these inventive ways. But staying the course and kind of keeping it as what we've been doing, I don't think is really an option right now.
Thank you, Dot.
Just to let you know also, what we're trying to achieve is policies and procedure from all these master plans. So that's where, a new policy and procedure for, to kind of yet understand the Kuna decision and allow private waste treatment plan to connect residents within their sphere of influence, such as Puuko, for example. So these are policies and procedures. That's where we need to start implementing. I mean, all that discussion in Georgiana, your question has really become policy and procedure of how to maximize connection with what you got from resources, private or public.
Dorothy.
Hi, yeah, my thoughts are that these individual wastewater treatment plants, they're being operated by the private sector. And but I have my feeling that the county should maintain a hand in the consistency of their operations because well, I imagine you do have regulations that you monitor the treatment plants for, but consistently, do that with them because I have a feeling that, they could, with the private sector, you will try to cut corners sometimes. That could be said for the county too. But also look for experience in the mainland. There are lots of experienced and new innovations going on with wastewater treatment, and I'm sure you're keeping abreast of that as well. Thank you.
Yeah, just to let you know, Dorothy, it's from a regulatory point of view, the Department of Health oversees our waste treatment plan and private waste treatment plan. So county cannot oversee private wastewater treatment plant because they all under the Department of Health. So, and they have to comply with the Clean Water Act through EPA and the state. So we are under the same regulation as the private entities as well.
Yeah, the jurisdictional issues in this county drive me crazy. So it's DOH, and I think our responsibility as EMC and DEM is if we see something that's not working, we say something. We try to get it.
The duty of the people who are actually part of that community to actually report problems?
Well, the challenge here is we cannot police state water. And any wastewater, it could be private or public, eventually contribute to the groundwater, which is a state water, or the shoreline, which is federal. So we cannot police our own self. So you cannot have the fox watch the hen house. That's why we have the process we have.
Okay, I'm going to move us along so that we can actually go to lunch at some point. The next item on the agenda. Oh, well, I had Alan kind of associated with this item, but you can take whichever one you want, Alan. The next item on the agenda is the status of existing staff vacancies and recent hires. And I thought that your comment was dealing with wastewater staffing. And if not, say not and say what you want to say.
Are you addressing me?
Oh, this is for Alan Fukushima. I'm sorry, I'm messing your name up. Is he coming through?
Can you hear me?
We can hear
Hello?
you now.
Okay, sorry, I'm driving. Yeah, so as far as the staff vacancies go, this department has done minimal hiring or leaving the jobs postings open. The last time I think was, I could be wrong, but prior to this last month where they opened it, I think was last year. And, nothing came out of that. Nobody was hired. I don't know how many applicants they had. But the issue is they can't even move up our own operators who get licensed. and they said they would, but we have one operator who got licensed in March and still hasn't been moved up. So he's not able to get the pay differential from going to an assistant to a grade one. And this has been a continuous problem. We've heard excuses, oh, we don't have HR, we don't have this and that. But, you know, that shouldn't be an issue. You know, something needs to be done about it, because this is what's hurting people that want to move up too, is like, if you get your license, we have to wait till somebody from HR, be it 1 or even 2 years, to move you up. It took me, when I got my grade 2 license, a year and a half. And that's after having to grumble about it and getting everybody else moved up too. So, you know, this department is really lacking on just the fundamentals of this stuff. So.
Okay, I think we hear your comment and very much appreciate it. We also have written comment from Dell Otsuka relative to the extraordinary number of vacancies that exist at DEM. But before we go into more discussion on the topic, I think we need to hear from Sinclair Salas Ferguson, our corporation counsel, and whether or not you recommend we go into executive session.
Yeah, I think you should go into executive session.
I need to ask for a vote, right?
Yeah. Do you guys have that language? Does somebody have that language on?
Can I say something?
I'm
Sorry.
not sure.
I was just wondering. I was just wondering why this particular item has to go under executive session.
No, I'm going to provide legal advice to the board. So in order to protect that attorney-client privilege, we have to go into executive session and exclude everybody else but the board members or other necessary staff. So I think Peter, sir, would be a necessary staff that can stay in the executive session.
Okay.
Does that answer your question, Commission Member Otsuka?
Yes.
Okay, so I think in the chat, Peter is writing up that we need to have, there is a motion. I guess I'm making a motion.
Yeah, let me find Peter. Do you have the statutory section off the top of your head? I mean, not off the top of your head, but on let me just find it for you. Just HRS 2. Sorry, usually it's on the agenda. It has it on the agenda, but okay, so could somebody please make a motion that the board hold a meeting close to the public pursuant to section 92-5 to consult with the board's attorney on questions and issues pertaining to the board's powers, duties, privileges, immunities, and liabilities?
Also move.
And a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor of executive session, say aye. All
Aye.
opposed, say no.
8, 1, 2, 3.
Was it everybody who was
4,
okay?
5, 6, 7, 8.
Oh, you're asking how many people are here. Okay.
So, sorry, Georgine. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Did you guys vote already? Sorry, I was thinking.
Yes, we voted,
Okay.
and we voted to go into executive session as of this time.
Yeah, so somebody on Zoom is asking, are they gonna be kicked off and have to re-sign in, or
You go into the waiting room.
okay, so that answers Mr. Ewell's question, that they'll go into the waiting room, they don't have to sign in again. And then once we come back out of executive session to open session, they'll be readmitted into the meeting. So for everybody else who's on the Zoom.
We have recessed the open public commission meeting, and we're now in executive session, which is okay. Welcome back. We are out of executive session, where we discussed with Corporation Counsel EMC's Advisory Authority regarding human resource issues. As a result of that meeting, we will close out the item on the status of existing staff vacancies and recent hires. And I will be working with Dell and Otsuka and Sinclair on an agenda item for next meeting. Going back to, we had a couple of relatively minor questions from commissioners that I don't think have been addressed. Is there anybody from DEM on water, Chris or Ramsey online? There's Chris. Okay. And I should let you ask the question, Lee. Go ahead.
For the Nalehu wastewater treatment plant for getting the land, wouldn't it be faster to proceed with buying it rather than using eminent domain?
As far as buying it, it could be faster, but and by all means, if the seller wants to go that route, then that will greatly accelerate the process. But the eminent domain process has already been put into motion and is moving through council.
That takes 2 years. I would think that would affect our time frame for meeting deadlines.
I can comment on that if you're okay with that, Chris.
Sure.
I've done eminent domain proceedings, and we only use eminent domain in the county when the landowner is not willing to sell it to us. So that's when we enact eminent domain proceedings, and it's relatively quick. To answer your question, Commissioner McIntosh, we go and survey what we want. We ask the council to provide us the authority to institute an eminent domain proceeding. So we have to go get a resolution. That's pretty quick. We file a complaint in circuit court. We put a deposit for what the property is valued at. We have an appraiser appraise the property. If it's 50 grand, we put 50 grand in the court. And then we can get possession of the property pretty quick. There's a mechanism where we can file a motion, an ex parte motion for possession of the land, and the court has to rule on that motion within 10 days. And they're required to. So it's not 2 years, Commissioner McIntosh. It can be as quick as, a couple months, depending on how fast the resolution gets through.
Okay.
Okay. The other one was my question that I think we decided I could still ask. But I don't know if there's Ramsey or someone from the waste group read in the paper that R&D was working on a request for a proposal for waste to energy of some sort. And just wanted to know what DM knows about it, if anything. Not hearing anybody from DEM.
Yeah,
So
the
we
waste
got one
energy,
answer.
that's outside of what I've been involved in. We can get back to you on that though.
Okay, I'll defer that. And it probably warrants its own agenda item rather than buried in a question. Future items, going to look at policy legislation needs as might appear in previous pretreatment code, wastewater code changes, and I'll work up some kind of agenda item around that, maybe more broadly as we look at next year's legislative activities. What might we want to start recommending? We'll have a couple other items that we've discussed. If there's anything any of you want to bring up for next meeting, just let me and Peter know, and we'll try to come up with a decent statement for you to see on the agenda. Announcements. Our next meeting.
Chair.
Oh, yeah, Laura, sorry.
I wanted to just put on the record for question or possible agenda item for next round, including asking for more details around DEM's potential or involvement in the waste to energy project, or when that will eventually switch over to DEM, and kind of like a little bit more of a timeline on that. But also if there's any involvement with DEM in conversations on a recycling plant on island, public or private. Thank you.
Hi, Georgina.
Yeah. Sorry, I was looking around.
I know we talked, you said that you put it on the agenda, but should I so note that to be put on the agenda now? Or it's a given?
I will be working with you on an agenda item around new ideas for human resources for DEM.
So I shouldn't
it's on my
state it now.
list.
Okay.
You don't need
Thank
to
you.
say it. I made a note. I'll get it. Jump on me when you see the next draft of the agenda items and say, oh, you
Okay.
forgot this, Georgie.
Thank you.
I'll get it in there. So back to announcements in the next meeting. Peter.
Yes.
We have some challenges. We'd originally had it set for November 20, and there's a council meeting that day.
Right.
So you have alternatives, or you want to?
Yeah, we'll get the room for November 27th in Hilo. Put in a conference room. Just want to make sure that's okay with everyone. That's a Wednesday. I know Lee doesn't like the day before Thanksgiving, but that's what we got.
Did I see a question from Dot?
If there are no major issues, then
is the 27th going to work?
27th works better for me because I'll be in Fiji on the 20th.
Can we all come with you? Okay. Watch for the announcement. We think we can get a room then, and we need to know whether we can have a quorum. So we'll be in touch on that, and that meeting will be in Hilo.
Can I add real quick?
Sure.
If it's a question of quorum, I can try and zoom in. I just might not be
I don't want
good
you
shape.
We'll check in with you and make sure. But thank you for offering. Anything else from anybody wants to have announcements?
This is Commissioner McIntosh. For the next meeting, I'll show up in person and bring my photographic equipment, and I can take a picture of whoever shows up, and y'all can have it through email.
Well, thank you. I think also I will try one more last time, since that'll be my last meeting as chair, to make sure that we have some lunch available. So we'll need to have
I like that.
Especially if this goes on as long as this meeting, when we'll have some lunch provided. Yeah, it'll be Lee and my swan song, although technically we can carry on for another 3 meetings. But I will not be the chair. So all of you start thinking about whether or not you want to be the chair next time. And back to one of the conversations we probably shouldn't have had in an executive session, how you would like to define or set goals for what you want to accomplish with EMC next year. So that could be our lunchtime conversation. Anything else I'm forgetting? I guess not. Thank you very much. Great conversations, no great answers, but we're moving forward. Things are happening. congratulations to DEM on getting monies and actions started relative to the wastewater challenges you have. So thank you. And we really appreciated the Corolla presentation. I think that was very valuable. And we'll probably have 59 different questions we'll bring up for next meeting. So thank you all. Aloha.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn this meeting.
Thank you. Second from Dot. Everybody, aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Okay. Aloha again. Meeting is closed.
Aloha.